At this time, I'd like to introduce Greg Brophy. Greg is a former Colorado state senator from Ray, Colorado. In January, Greg resigned his position as Chief of Staff for Representative Ken Buck and returned to Colorado to work here. So Greg, if you'd come on up and...
Well, thank you for having me, and it's good to see everybody here in Akron. Jerry, good to hear your analysis, and as slanted as it was, I tend to agree with you all the time, which is why I'm glad you're my state senator. I'm holding right here in my hands our United States Constitution. How many of you have read the U.S. Constitution? Most of you, keep your hands up, keep your hands up. How many of you who have read it believe it should be a living, breathing document that keeps up with modern times? Not very many people believe that. How would you like to have all of America vote every 2 years on the rights that are protected by our U.S. Constitution? Would you like to see all of America vote on our Second Amendment, on our First Amendment freedom of speech, on our First Amendment protection of freedom of religion? I wouldn't either. And if that's what you think about our U.S. Constitution, why on earth would anybody ever suggest that we should have a 2-year plebiscite on our Colorado state constitution? It also exists, just like our federal constitution, to protect our individual rights and to direct the functioning of government. But we have a problem in Colorado. We have an initiative process, and it's the easiest in all of the United States. An initiative process that allows for our Colorado state constitution to be amended every 2 years, exactly the same way that state laws are changed by the initiative process every 2 years. And it's the easiest in all of the country. And it's becoming a growing problem in the last 10 or so years. Almost 70% of the measures that you see on the ballot, the things that Jerry was talking about, that come from the citizenry, are constitutional in their nature. So more and more people who are going the initiative process are choosing to make those measures constitutional as opposed to statutory. And the problem with that is that things that go into our Constitution are practically permanent. So an out-of-state group runs a measure, well, like the 70, the increase in minimum wage, and almost entirely funded by out-of-state organizations, probably on the ballot to encourage young people to vote this year, in the hopes that when they vote this year, they'll also cast a vote for Democratic candidates. You can see the motivation behind that. But it's a constitutional measure, so if it passes, we're stuck with it forever. So out-of-state groups run it, we're stuck holding the bag after they run their measure. So I believe that's a problem, and I am here to offer a solution, and the solution is Amendment 71. And in the spirit of education, I will also say what the arguments against Amendment 71 are. But what Amendment 71 does is it makes it harder to amend the Constitution in Colorado, because I believe it should be harder to amend a Constitution than it is to change a law because of the permanency of constitutional amendments. So what Amendment 71 does is it raises the bar for future constitutional amendments. First, we want people to involve all of Colorado in the petition gathering process before a measure to change the Constitution is put on the ballot. We do that by requiring signatures to be gathered in all 35 state Senate districts. Right now, you can gather all of your signatures in Boulder if you want to, in Denver if you want to. And most of the time, rural Colorado is locked out of that process. Well, under Amendment 71, you'll have to get about 2,000 signatures in each and every one of the 35 state Senate districts. It's technically 2% of the registered voters on the day that your measure is certified for petition gathering. So it's like 1,800 signatures in Senate District 1, 2,100 in Senate District 4 if you had a measure right now. And then, because constitutional measures are practically permanent, and let me give you an example of how permanent they are. I mean, this year, after 140 years, we are about to take the reference to slavery out of our state constitution. Slavery in our constitution for 140 years. There has been exactly one contested amendment taken out of our state constitution. One in 140 years out of the 151 amendments that we have. And that was the end on prohibition. The only amendment ever taken out was to allow you to drink again in Colorado. So I say permanent. So the second half of Amendment 71 is if you're going to add something to the Constitution that's practically permanent, we have a higher bar for passage of 55% to prove that you have broad support for your idea, whatever your idea is, before it's added to the Constitution of the state of Colorado. Earn 55% of the vote of the citizenry of Colorado, involve all of Colorado in the signature gathering process. That's what Amendment 71 does. And no matter what you feel or how you feel about all the other amendments and measures that you see on the ballot this year, I would ask you to remember this. 71 is the one you should vote for, even if you're a yes on all the, or if you're a no on all the rest. Probably the best arguments that I've heard against it, and really the only argument that's on the merits of the measure against it, are that it raises the bar too high. It's just too hard to get signatures in rural Colorado. As a matter of fact, I heard someone say at of course, at a Douglas County GOP meeting, that you can't go out to eastern Colorado and get signatures. Those people live 10 miles apart. There's no way you can get 2,000 signatures out there. Garbage. We did. We went to all of the rural Senate districts, there are 6, and we got more than 2,000 signatures in all of the rural state Senate districts, just to show that we could. As a matter of fact, we were actually done gathering signatures a few days early, but we didn't feel like we had enough from Senate District 1, so we sent signature gatherers to Sterling and to Brush and to Elizabeth to gather signatures to get us over the mark in Senate District 1. It can be done. But that's probably the best argument that I've heard against it, is that it's just too hard. And I'll say this, from a guy who has always been a homer for rural Colorado, I can think of nothing that we've had an opportunity to participate in that is more important to rural Colorado than the protections offered by Amendment 71. When you think about how many more people are coming to this state, this may be our final shot before some anti-agriculture group runs a constitutional amendment that permanently damages the economy of eastern Colorado in a way that the Front Range wouldn't even notice, but would be utterly devastating to us. This may be our last chance as citizens in rural Colorado to be protected from out-of-state special interest groups who like to play around with our ballot measure process.